Hey, APUSH students, hope you're doing well. We've been encouraged to do a real quick open house, getting to know you video. If you watch my longer one from the other day, you're probably good to go for the most part. I'm going to point out a few things that we've kind of changed a little bit, but it's nothing drastic. First of all, I'm looking really forward to working with you all this year. Looks like it's going to be a pretty good group as far as size. So that's really cool. It's really, once we get in, crossing our fingers on this, into the regular classroom and having everyone there, it's a good thing to have different perspectives and everything. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm Mr. Baker. I've been teaching this course. This will be my 17th full year teaching APUSH, so I've got some good experience doing that. But on the other hand, as we know, there's no substitute for practice. So everything that we do is about trying to build where we were to where we want to be. Okay, so I would encourage students to also keep that in mind as they progress and put their time into the course. So just really quick, they should have been, or at least by the time we have our first class session on Tuesday, July 21st, they should basically have some reading done. Reading is the key to doing well, and not just saying I read, but really taking some notes, doing some things that you need to. We are going to be going over a couple of things about how to read with that in mind. So if students are kind of in need of kind of some guidance here, certainly that will be there. But what I want to do, you can see in front of me in my screen, basically what this course is going to entail for those of you that are wondering about what the students study. It's basically divided pardon me, into 9 time periods. We start off with basically the era before, not Washington, excuse me, Christopher Columbus. And basically we try to get as modern as we can get, which basically means that we cover, up until about the earlier 2000s, or the modern era. Okay, so just really quick, you'll notice in front of you, a lot of this are things that you've seen. It's a broken record, but we're expected to at least pass it on again. So please bear with me if you've gotten a couple emails more than I usually would do. It's just me trying to keep you in the loop and follow through. This is a tough time, as we know, so it's important to kind of make sure that you're informed. So anyway, so students will be using the AMSCO textbook as a primary reading text, and they're also going to be using the Fabric of a Nation, more or less really to help them develop writing and thinking skills. And so what I want students to do when they come by to get their materials, few students have already came by with siblings. So if you want hard copies of those and you've already came by, those will be available for Thursday. I'll be here until at least 8 to noon, maybe not for the sophomores, but if you have a junior or senior who's going to be in the class and they come with the sophomores, just ask the person that you talk to, my child's in APUSH, could you please check and see if they have textbooks? And they're all there for you to have access to, and I'm sure they'd be happy to help you with that. I know I will when I'm there. Okay, so anyway, so we are encouraged to do a lot of digital things, which is great, but students and myself too like hard copies. We like to have things there. Some of them might not want them, at least take them for now, even if you don't plan to use them. However, what I need every student to do is to make sure that the AMSCO textbook has been put onto your iPad and your iBooks or somewhere where you can actually access it. And I also need for you to join the Launchpad for the course with Fabric of a Nation that is unique to me. We're not going to be using that extensively. If you watch my other video, which will be a little bit lengthier than this one, then you'll see how to access that. And I'll certainly show them that on Tuesday with the time we have. But this is going to be the digital version of the Fabric text. So I want every student, now if you get to the page where you have to put in the access code, you have the access code on the directions, which are here, okay? And so anyway, if you do not do that, then you're not gonna have access. The access code has been paid for by our school. Now there's also one where you can pay for yourself. Don't use that one. The school has been, kind enough to buy copies enough for all the students. Okay, so anyway, just to point that out to you as a quick thing. Okay, you'll also notice the welcome materials are really the things that if you're watching this, that you're watching. I did post the longer video that I had from the other night that I sent out an email about. You can watch that or not. I think probably about the last 10 minutes of it, give or take, goes through how to basically use the Launchpad. So if you don't have time to watch the whole thing, that's fine. But I would encourage the students especially to do that, especially after you log in and you figure out how to do it. You'll have to create a password, or not just password, but a username. Please use your FA email for that, okay, if you don't mind. And then you should have access to that. And you have the whole textbook at your fingertips, which is very cool. Okay. You'll also notice, I'll go back to the summer assignment reminder in a moment. As I pointed out also in my previous video, you've got the syllabus there. You've got the unit 1. Now, this is a short yet informative video on the first unit. As you can see, it's about 8 minutes and 45 seconds. Students can go ahead and get started on this if they would like to. Okay. So anyway, but it's just going to give, we'll do one of these for every unit. So unit 2 will be weeks 2 and 3. So that'll be one of the first things that they'll want to do. I'm also going to create a separate module that will have just the AMSCO reading guides for students that prefer to use them. They are not required. I'm not going to say to you unless people aren't reading. I don't think that will be a problem, but if it's like, whoa, I didn't read, okay, well, that's a problem, okay, and then we'll have to go to assignments, but I don't anticipate that being the case, okay, but students do want to be organizing their reading, taking notes down. One of the first skills that we focus on in our first week is going to be how to read, for purpose, and also how to break down secondary sources. Again, if you took AP World, then this is probably something that you're familiar with. But as I pointed out in my previous video, some of the best students I've had have been students that have made the jump from honors to AP, and they worked hard, and they were able to develop those skills. And in many cases, they had a lot of them. They just had to kind of work on them, as we all do. We know that life is something that's a building block for skills and things. Okay. With that being said, you'll notice that this also is something that students will want to kind of work through, the chronology, what kind of events. Now, we'll talk about this in connection to context and how, what is the difference between simply memorizing dates for the sake of knowing them. You can know 100 dates and not understand history, and knowing the place of things with historical developments. Okay. So anyway, those little things will kind of help you work through. What are the objectives that we're going to work through for unit 1? This is a quick unit. So we're going to do about a week. Unit 2 will be 2 weeks, right? Unit 3 will be about 3 or 4. Okay. So anyway, something to definitely keep in mind as we kind of build upon our studies. Okay. You'll also notice, again, it's kind of keeping students in a sequence of how to manage the course. Students, if I'm all of you, I'm going to be doing probably the AMSCO reading over the weekend, or at least try to at least get into it for sure. That way you can finish it Monday, and then Tuesday you've got that out of the way. The video you've watched, you'll not have a video every week, most likely. Okay. At least in that regard. And then you'll have, if you want to print off those objectives, have them there as you're reading, that might be helpful. In fact, I might even create a separate document on those. I think that might be helpful. It's not there yet. And then you'll notice for a typical week, students are going to have basically 3 different assignments. Okay, so the first assignment is going to be one that kind of connects the first day of class. The second one is going to be one, like for example, the multiple choice assessment is probably going to be available to students, after class on Thursday. And then, the first week we might adjust this a little bit just with the nature of getting back in the swing of it. But they're usually also going to have some kind of short response question type of assignment that gets them in the frame of mind of writing. Okay. Now, if we have a DBQ or a long essay that we're working on, I'm not going to obviously throw more fuel and fire for them. So you might see that a typical week is usually 3 grades, but sometimes it might be 2. Quizzes, however, are always going to be, unless I state otherwise, in that larger scale assessment category. Okay. And so, those will usually, as I said in my earlier video, source-based. So they want to be able to read, and apply, whether it's an excerpt or a chart or a graph or something along the lines of a political cartoon. And so anyway, those will all be through Canvas, and the details on that we'll cover. I also plan to do some kind of focus on Friday. My office hours for APUSH, if you need to set up a time separate from that, that's fine too, is going to be, I think it is from 11 to noon time on Friday. Okay. And the whole point of that is going to be, we want to try to develop the thinking skills a little bit more. Hopefully when we get back into that 5-day period, we'll be able to do that with more, typical class time. But anyway, so we will kind of emphasize that a little bit. Students are always going to have, or at least most of the time, something to read that involves skills. Okay. The first week, it's simply going to be breaking down reading documents. Second week is going to be, how do we tackle an SAQ? Okay. Or a short answer question. Okay. And the different kinds that they're likely to see, we'll look at throughout phases of the year. Okay. And so that's going to be where the fabric becomes a pretty important resource. And then obviously they'll have the primary source analysis assignment. Okay. Most of the weeks they'll see these. That's going to be where that fabric text is heavily used. Okay. And I'm going to create a template that kind of helps them organize their ideas for each document. And that will need to be submitted via Canvas. Okay. Now students ask a question. Okay. Do we really need, are these assignments that we need to complete on our own? I would say you really should be doing those individually. Okay. So, when you submit them, if you prefer to type, students are like, do you prefer typing? Do you prefer handwriting? My answer is whatever works best for you. Okay. Make sure the quality of what you submit is important, but also keep in mind, there is going to be a way for us to see that work is original. Okay. So that's what we're looking for there. I don't want students to feel like, well, we can't collaborate with each other. Collaboration, in my opinion, is important, right? We do it as teaching colleagues about what are you teaching, how can we get different ideas, but there's a difference between collaborating, at least I would argue. If you're kind of reading over the chapter and you're discussing, let's say the themes a little bit, and you're trying to maybe go over notes together, that is fine, right? But where there's a fine line there is when you move into really developing these skills and things with these assignments that are unique, which will be most of them until we go to regular, learning. So anyway, just keep that in mind. At the end of the day, I want y'all to know, you've heard me say this before, but just to reiterate, I applaud students for wanting to take this class. There's a lot of responsibility with it. And so, feel free to reach out. One last thing, just really quick, under the open house page, that is important. This kind of makes sure that you just kind of have your ducks in a row with the first week. So again, have you read AMSCO Chapter 1? Have you basically done the document assignment? Have you established the launch pad for your fabric text, which is important, again, as a resource? If you're one that likes to use the iPad, I'm one of those modern traditionalists where I like to sometimes read things digitally, but I like to handwrite a lot of things. Okay, so your access to technology might be different. Every student in the high school, as you know, has an iPad, so that should be there. But, if you like to type things additionally and you don't have, let's say, a regular, computer, then that might be more difficult. But the flip side of that is if you prefer the hard copies and you like using your iPad to take notes on or whatever, then you can use that certainly there too. Okay, so there's a lot of flexibility with you to figure out how using these resources best fits you. The main thing I'm concerned about is, are you following through with your commitments? And more importantly, beyond that, if you have questions, that you're coming to me for help. Okay. You'll notice you can contact me at bakerdfranklinacademy.org. Again, if you cannot attend our handing out resources, I will unfortunately not be here Friday. So please contact me. And students, after you successfully do Launchpad, there's a direction for you to send me a real quick email. It doesn't have to be detailed, saying, Mr. Baker, it worked. If it doesn't work, then we need to set up some kind of Zoom where I can help you access that, and I'd be happy to. Hope you are doing great. Feel free to reach out to me. This is Mr. Baker signing off. Have a great year. I'm looking forward to it. And parents, again, thank you so much for entrusting not just myself, but our school to the care of your children and our students. We appreciate it a lot. Have a good one.